Warning, this content is for entertainment and educational purposes only. This video is brought to you by First Detachment Nutrition. Battle tested, expert formulated. Use discount code AB10 at checkout for 10% off. All right, folks, Big Paul here with another Anabolic Q&A. We're going to dig into some of your questions today about bodybuilding, training, PEDs, whatever the heck we get into. Just a quick note before I start, please check out the Science of Anabolics PED course. A link to it is in the video description below. Kurt Havens and I put a lot of work into this. It is fantastic. There's a free preview with over 2 hours worth of content for you to check out. Let's get started in just 1 second. All right, first question I have here is from Jeffrey Allen 1603. I've been hearing a lot of days that it's not what you run, but the milligrams you run. How true is that? I mean, there is some truth to that. There's some old studies I've seen posted around. Some other gurus have posted them up where it shows that all compounds, all PEDs, anabolics, I guess I should say, all anabolics secrete muscle protein synthesis at the same rate. Now, there are other factors that go into growth, such as CNS stimulation for strength increases. There's water retention, water and mineral retention that other PEDs promote. It's more than just muscle protein synthesis. So I don't know how much we can look into just the muscle protein synthesis aspect of it. So that is a factor. So if that were to be true, that it really is just milligrams that matter at that point, and you would likely just choose the compounds that would be the safest and get the milligrams up higher. That's why you see a lot of dudes running Test and Master on now, because there's an assumption, we don't know if that's correct, that is a safer cycle. Safer, I say. But anytime you're pushing the milligrams up, you're still in the abusive territory. I know bodybuilders that are big and on the pro level are in abusive territory. I would say sensible abuse. So they tend to choose safer compounds and run those higher, is what I've seen. Now, a lot of people, this Masteron bandwagon that's going on right now, I don't know how much I buy into Masteron as an off-season compound. I think there are better choices if you want to put size on. Plus, we don't know how safe Masteron is. There's not a lot of studies on it. A lot of the stuff we don't know at those levels. We can't say definitively. You sort of have to go on anecdotal experience. But yes, to a certain degree, that is true. Anybody that gets big and gets to a certain size at some point has pushed milligrams up. It doesn't take a lot to maintain. It does take some to bust past plateaus. Now, you don't want to come out of the gate with huge doses. You want to get by with the least effective dose possible and work your way up from there. It's just like if you were a beginner lifter, you wouldn't go in and try to lift 405 pounds on the bench press and expect to get results. You're just going to shatter yourself. So it's a progressive thing. As you get bigger, you're going to need more to get even bigger. That's just how it goes. Next question is from Breck Amy 417. Amy asks, "Hi Paul, I love your Q&As. What do you think is a safe cycle length for a female bikini competitor to use Anavar during the off-season with a TRT base, dialed-in diet and protein intake, and structured lifting program, or just save it for the 6 to 8 weeks pre-show?" Well, I am not the expert on women's PED use. I would check out Corey Hagman or some of the other people that know more than me, but I'll tell you what I have seen. It really depends on what your tolerance is for masculinization. I have seen girls that run shit year-round, even bikini competitors. There are also non-androgenic pathways that you can consider in the off-season, such as HGH, things like clenbuterol, stuff that's not going to cause virilization. Those are other options that you could consider. I would probably be inclined to lean that way. If you don't want to become a dude, you probably want to play it safe and limit your exposure to AASs. Now, Is 5 milligrams of Anavar run for 6 to 8 weeks in the off season going to masculinize you? Probably not, but that's nothing that anybody could say definitively. So really, it just depends on your own risk tolerance. I know that's an ambiguous answer, and I'd probably reach out to somebody who's done this, another female competitor, a bikini competitor. I need to get Corey on sometime, but she is a good follow on Instagram. She seems to be at least one of the pro female competitors that is forthcoming and open about this type of stuff. All right, next question is from Alex Rodriguez. What is the furthest out from a show you would implement metformin and why? You don't necessarily need to use metformin on contest prep. I have in the past. I did it not on my last show, but the show prior. For me, it's just an alternative to semaglutide without as many side effects. It's a way to suppress appetite. It's probably unnecessary for 99% of people. I was just experimenting and playing with it, and I had looked at the studies that showed that it had similar hunger hormone signaling effects as semaglutide, and I wanted to give it a try and see how it resulted. I've heard people having horrible side effects from semaglutide, as far as gastric emptying and stomach side effects that seem to be permanent or long-term after discontinuing semaglutide, like last for months. I did not want to risk that. Now, my advice would be use the least amount of stuff that you can possibly use. That would be the safer way to do things. If you don't need metformin, if you don't have problems with hunger getting ahead of you, having uncontrolled hunger, then it's probably something you could just leave on the bench. You don't need it. All right, next question is from Mr. and Mrs. Blue Collar Bodybuilding, my friends Dave and Jackie. How does one judge if they're resting adequately from training a body part and then training it again? It took me time to learn, and not everything heals in the same time. Yeah, I have found that my quads and, well, probably my hamstrings seem to be the thing that takes the longest to recover. I feel like I could probably train biceps every single day of the week, and that, like, my biceps or my arms just never get sore. Not that I would advise that. One would rationalize, I don't know if there's any studies on this, I'm completely talking out of my ass right now, that a larger muscle group, if you hit it harder using heavier weights, that it's probably going to take more time to recover. One would assume that doing, an 800 or 900 pound leg press or 400 pound squats for reps is going to cause a lot more stress and therefore recovery than a 30 pound or 20 pound cable curl would. So I think you sort of just have to figure it out on your own. Intensity and volume also play into this factor as well. There's there's sort of a sliding scale. If your intensity is high, you're taking things to failure or beyond failure, you are going to need more time to recover, and you're going to have less room for volume. You're probably going to have to keep volume lower. If you're keeping some reps in reserve and not doing taxing exercise such as barbell squats or barbell deadlifts, you can probably train things again in 3 or 4 days. So there are a lot of variables in there. There's going to be intensity. There is going to be the stimulus to fatigue ratio of the exercise, so how taxing that exercise is on your body. Also, frequency plays a role into it, and volume. So you have to consider all of these. Diesel Dave 5 asks, can you go into detail on how you built up your legs from your rebound out of the first show? My legs are probably still they're a weak point. They're my weakest point. I've had multiple knee surgeries, and so it's really hard for me to train my legs adequately. I have to deal with knee pain, so I have to be very careful with what exercises I run or choose and how often I do them, and make sure that my knees are not getting creaky. I'm also limited on range of motion because of knee operations, although that seems to have gotten better. I've been able to get deeper on my exercises. I've been making a conscious effort to take it a little bit lighter and to try to get deeper on my leg exercises such as hack squats. We also have a nice selection of machines at my gym that allow me to choose things well. Now, legs are one of those things There's going to be some people that are going to get upset with me that seem to respond really well to full range of motion and a lot of volume. It seems like when you throw more volume at legs, you have better range of motion, that you're going to get growth. I see powerlifters all the time that can move some serious fucking weight on squats, but they don't have huge legs. They'll have big asses, they'll have big backs, but their legs aren't that big. You'll see these guys all the time. Yet bodybuilders have bigger legs, and a lot of times bodybuilders, at least open class bodybuilders, pros, you don't see many of them doing barbell squats. They tend to do things like hack squats, lunges, split squats, leg presses, and do them in higher rep ranges with full range of motion and more volume. That is mostly what I see with those types of guys that have huge quads in the pro bodybuilder ranks. So I think don't train your legs like a powerlifter. Get over the obsession with breaking PRs on squats. Probably do more hack squats, leg presses, lunges. Hit your quads with a couple different things that are actually working them. Keep the rep ranges a little bit higher, probably over the 10 rep range, and bang them out with some volume. Nice guy 4928 asks, what do you think about changing your rep ranges every 4 weeks or so? I generally vary my rep ranges throughout my workouts, so I don't have to change them that way. What I'll do is my heavy compound movements are probably in the 10 to 12 rep range, maybe 8 to 12. Very rarely do I go below 10 anymore, just because of risk of injury. If I were younger, I would probably take some of the compound movements down to the 8 rep range. Modern studies have shown that somewhere, don't quote me on this, this is just what I'm pulling off the top of my head, but somewhere between 8 to 25 reps, in that range, you can get hypertrophy from. So I save the heavier weights for the compound movements, and then my auxiliary movements, my secondary movements, I'll keep in the 12, 15, even up to 20 rep range. So I'll have a couple different exercises with a couple different rep ranges throughout my workout. Now, every once in a while, when I was younger, I would do a strength block where maybe I would take things down into the 5 to 8 rep ranges on compound movements. Now, keep in mind, that's probably not as good for hypertrophy, but you can build up strength. So when you go into your next hypertrophy block, you can push up your weights that you're using for hypertrophy. You can vary it. I think 4-week blocks are probably too short. I like running 5 to 6 week blocks of training, and then I'll pull a deload after 5 to 6 weeks. I'll be honest, a lot of times I don't even run deloads. I just keep going until I feel like the wheels are going to fall off. Probably not the smartest approach, but that's what I did when I was younger. Now I run like 5 to 6 week blocks of training. Coached by Roland asks, what would you use on contest prep instead of Tren? Well, back in the day, guys didn't run a lot of Tren. It used to be just test, either Masteron or Primobolan, and sometimes not even test, and then Winstrol. So if you can definitely get in shape without Tren. If you wanted to, I would probably, me personally, this is what I would do. I'd probably run test, Masteron, and some Anavar. That's a pretty mild cycle with some GH going into a contest prep. Or if you can tolerate it, run Winstrol. My only issue with Winstrol is that it hurts my joints. Winstrol makes my joints feel like crap, so I generally stay away from it. But something super simple like that is probably what I would do. Cruz Mario Wee asks, what are your thoughts on the Anabolic Games? I don't know the guy specifically that's putting them on, but I would have to speculate. I don't know if this is his intention. It's that he's trying to normalize PED use. It's really ridiculous that we have set a certain set of drugs aside and said that these are not allowed to be used by athletes. And then there are other worse drugs that are allowed to be used by them. So guys are getting doped up on opioids and painkillers and taking cortisol shots and things that are degenerative and cause harm to their health, way more harm than taking growth hormone or testosterone would be. That's okay, but taking testosterone and GH is not. It makes zero sense. It really is just ridiculous. And I would hope that at some point that we could see decriminalization of PEDs, that we see some see people move in that direction. And I think the first step to making that happen is to normalize them a bit, for people to see that they aren't the devil like everybody thinks they are, that they can be used somewhat responsibly if done so intelligently. And if we decriminalize things, people can actually work with a doctor or a professional to make sure that they're applying these things correctly. For example, a professional athlete could just go to the team doctor and say, hey, what would you suggest? And they can work with the team doctor and make sure that they are being tested appropriately, their health's being managed and monitored. That would make a lot more sense to me. So the hope is, I would think things like the Anabolic Games and more stuff like this is going to normalize PED use and make it more acceptable socially, which should ultimately lead to them being removed from the ban list in professional sports and ultimately to decriminalization. One can hope. Jamie Williamson 5883 asks, can you please explain the process of your gyno and tummy tuck surgery? Jamie, just so you know, I put a full video up explaining that. You can go find it on my channel. It was a couple weeks ago. Maybe you asked this question before I made that video. So Jamie also asks, like, which came first, your own personal recovery time, and how much did it cost for both? I had multiple gyno surgeries because I went to a crappy surgeon. You need to make sure that you go to a plastic surgeon, more specifically a reconstructed plastic surgeon that probably also has experience working with bodybuilders. You're going to get the best results if you do that. I went to a general surgeon because it was cheaper the first time, and he did not get all the gland out. He left a bunch of scar tissue there. My chest was deformed. My nipple was deformed. So I had to go in a second time and get these things fixed. And even my left breast, I had to go in a third time to get that redone. And I may have to go in and get my right one redone at some point too, because my nipples are not even, as people like to point out on social media. Costs, I mean, it just depends on where you're at here in the U.S. Anywhere from $5,000 to $10,000 for a gyno surgery. I don't know what they run right now. Pretty much every pro bodybuilder ends up getting gyno surgery at some point. I wouldn't say all, but a large percentage of them, so they can look good on stage and they can run higher doses of compounds and not have to worry about getting gyno again. When it comes to the tummy tuck thing, I have mixed feelings about it. It was a pretty brutal surgery with a brutal recovery. I don't know that I would do it again if I had to go back and... But ultimately, the results were pretty decent. The recovery was pretty rough. It was 6 weeks before I could get back into the gym, and it was a good 6 to 8 months before the inflammation in my stomach went down and it looked somewhat normal. That was more expensive for a tummy tuck. I had a mini tummy tuck, not a full tummy tuck, done, a abdominoplasty, I think they call it. And you're looking at probably $10,000 to $15,000 to get that done in the U.S. Navi DSGS 1926 asks, what ancillaries would help you stay lean longer in the off season? Well, really, just not eating a crap diet is probably the single biggest thing you can do. One I am thoroughly guilty of, and I should be doing more of, is throwing a little cardio in the off season just to keep everything going well. But the single biggest thing you can do to stay lean in the off season is just not eat crap food. Don't use it as an excuse to go off plan, to binge eat. Just eat more of the same crap that you ate on contest prep. Eat more chicken, eat more rice, eat more beef, eat more fish. Just eat more of the same clean foods. It's pretty hard to get fat eating chicken, rice, and beef and rice and vegetables. You have to really try hard to get fat eating that sort of stuff. Things that will help you stay lean, making sure that your estrogen doesn't get out of control and you're not a bloated mess. That's not really leanness, but it's just not being a bloated mess. What compounds you choose, staying away from crappy stuff like D-bol that's going to bloat you up and make you look awful, make you feel awful. Being mindful of like I said, being mindful of eating fatty meats. I try to eat all my meat sources from extremely lean meat sources. I don't want to eat fatty meat sources. And, just like doing walks, doing a little bit of cardio, just being careful with that sort of stuff. HGH certainly helps. It's not a miracle worker. It's, at the end of the day, it is about net energy balance, but I do see a better composition running HGH in the off season than I do not running it. Rick Noche 79 asks, you've mentioned you want to bring up your back this year. What's your game plan for doing so, and does that require you to push the food even more to get your off-season weight closer to 300-pound mark? I am 50 years old. Well, I will be 50 next week. I don't know that being 300 pounds at my age is smart. So I'm trying to stay a little tighter this off-season. I'm around 260 right now. I'm only about 20 pounds off of my stage weight. I would love to go up to 300, but there, in all honesty, I was probably 270, 275 at the peak of last offseason. Ended up on stage at 240, around 240. So I lost 35 pounds during contest prep. If I pushed up to 300, there's no way that I'm putting on extra 30 pounds of muscle tissue in one offseason at 50 years old. It's just going to be fat. So there's really no sense in pushing up that high for me. At least I don't think so at this point. It's not worth the risk. It's not really beneficial. It's just going to make contest prep harder. So I'm trying to stay a little bit leaner this offseason and see how the result goes. Now, as far as training, I have mixed my training up a little bit more. I'm trying to be more intelligent with my back training. I worked with an exercise physiologist to look at my back training and try to help me pick better exercises. I'm trying to hit my back from multiple different angles. I used to be just like a heavy barbell row kind of guy, and that was it. But when this person looked at my exercises that I'm doing right now, noticed that my form was kind of messed up on some things and made some form correction suggestions that may help me grow my back. We shall see. But that is my intention right now, to be more selective with my exercises, try to hit the back from different angles, make sure that my form is good and I'm actually engaging the muscles that I'm trying to work, and just put in the work from there. It really boils down at the end of the day. Anytime I see somebody with a lagging body part, it is almost always never a volume or intensity issue. It's almost always a crap form issue, or they just don't train it. Like calves, like everybody talks about having small calves. Well, guess what? Most people don't train very often. Calves are an afterthought. They do 2 or 3 sets at the end of their workout, and that's why they have small calves. So you want to make sure you have good form. If you don't have good form, throwing more volume at it, you're just going to be doing more of the same crappy form that got you crappy results before. So it really doesn't make any sense to increase volume on lagging body parts. So I'm trying to clean up my form, make sure that I am exercising the correct muscle groups that I'm trying to target, making sure that the form is clean, and just putting in the work and seeing what happens. That we'll see what happens on stage. All right, next question is from Robbie ERX123. Robbie asks, other than for the newbie users who wouldn't know which compound is actually providing a benefit or side effects, why would advanced users not use all the compounds at lower doses to get each of their slightly unique benefits? So you're talking about the shotgun methods. If I just throw everything up against the wall and see what sticks. Well, I'll tell you, the primary reason is a lot of those other compounds have side effects and issues that you don't want to deal with. I talked about it earlier in the Q&A that milligrams are probably more important for size, probably, we don't know for sure, than compound choice. Now, compound choice plays a factor in it. We 2,000 milligrams of Tren is not going to be fun and is going to have a different effect on you than running, say, primobolan or testosterone. So we want to be intelligent with our compound choice, run stuff that can be well tolerated, that we can push the doses a little bit higher without major side effects, and that is not going to crush our appetite in the off season. Like oral steroids are going to destroy your appetite. If you can't eat, you can't grow. So generally what you see is most open class or pro bodybuilders that are big, larger bodybuilders, they keep it really simple. They run test, they run GH, they run insulin, and then they pick some sort of secondary anabolic, usually either Primo or Equipoise, maybe a dabble of NPP or Nandrolone in there. But for the most part, it's test, EQ or Primo, GH, and insulin. That's a typical pro off-season cycle that I see. And they push the doses up to an appropriate amount for their level that they are at to get size on, And that's really it. And the reason why they do it is because everything has been tried. Trust me, everybody's tried every possible combination you can imagine. There is no secret formula. They figured out what works and what is well tolerated, and that's it. All right, folks, thank you for watching. I really appreciate each and every one of you. Go check out that free preview for the Anabolics e-course. If you want to get in contact with me, my contact information is below. Thank you for your support.